This is my first video update for this Tuesday morning from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. Let's discuss the negotiations that took place in Ankara, confirmed negotiations between the CIA director, Mr. Burns, and his Russian counterpart, the foreign intelligence head, Mr. Narushkin. And there were a lot of rumors swirling yesterday afternoon about some sort of meeting in Ankara between Russia and the United States, a secret meeting, which turned out to be not so secret, as the collective West media, as well as the Kremlin, the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, confirmed the meeting between both gentlemen. And the purpose of the meeting, well, first of all, interesting that it took place in Ankara, Turkey, because the other meeting between Russia and Ukraine that came very close to a peace deal way back in end of March, early April, was spoiled by Bojo Johnson and his trip to Kiev. That also took place in Turkey, I believe, in Ankara. So interesting that they chose Ankara once again to meet. Now, the White House, the U.S. said that the meeting is not about Ukraine, and it's about the nuclear Russia's potential use of a nuclear weapon, that nuclear bomb thing, and that Burns was traveling all the way from the United States to set up this secret meeting with Narushkin, just so he can warn the Russians not to use a nuclear weapon and the consequences if Russia were to use a nuclear weapon. And the Kremlin, well, they didn't say what the meeting was about, actually. They just said that it was initiated by the United States. Peskov was very clear. He made it a point to say this meeting was called by the United States. The UN Secretary General, he made a statement saying that the UN is not involved in any of this. The UN has nothing to do with this. He said it's a good sign that they're meeting, but the UN has no play, has no hand in this meeting between Burns and Narushkin. Now, what is going on here? What is going on? I talked about a freeze in the conflict 3-4 days ago. And I said, there's going to be a push to freeze. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I still don't think it's going to happen. But something told me that after the whole Kherson thing, looking at the map, looking at the positions of both militaries, the midterm elections, and the fact that the Democrats were on their way and now have actually scored very good results in the elections. Back then, they were on their way to a surprise result in the midterms. It was clear that there was going to be some sort of push to freeze this thing. Now, I said it could be a short-term freeze, a medium, or a long-term. I don't know. A short-term freeze, three months, 6 months, a couple of months. I don't know. Could be medium-term, like a year. Could be something long-term. I still don't think there's going to be a freeze. I just don't believe that's what's going to actually happen. But it is a possibility, and the side that is pushing the freeze is the United States. Not even Ukraine or Zelensky. Not that Zelensky matters, because what this meeting showed everybody is that Zelensky is a non-issue. He's just a non-player. He's a bit actor. Boy, that must really piss off Zelensky to understand that he's not the lead actor in this theater. He's just got a supporting role. Zelensky, you're a supporting actor. You're not the lead actor. You're a supporting actor. The lead actor, well, that's the U.S., that's the deep state, that's Bidenopolis, Greece's favorite son, that's Jake Sullivan, that's Burns. These guys, Newland, all these guys are the leads, an ensemble cast. They're the ones that are calling the shots. even the EU. The EU, they have a bit role in this film. Boy, must the EU be super upset that the U.S. is talking with the Russians without even inviting them. I bet you Borrell is just fuming. You're a chump, Borrell. That's what the U.S. is telling you. You're a chump. Just sit there and just take the beating that we give you, Borrell. That's pretty much it. That's Borrell's job, to sit and take orders, and then let the EU just take the beating that is being handed out to it by the U.S. The deindustrialization, the subjugation. So both sides are, well, the U.S., not both sides. The Russians didn't say anything. So the U.S. is saying this is not about negotiations. If you believe that Burns, someone who was ambassador of the United States to Russia in 2000, I believe 2006, 2005, 6, 7, sometime around there, if you believe that the U.S. called this meeting with the Russians back in Turkey, once again, coming back to Turkey, the symbolism of the location, they called this meeting. They flew all the way from the U.S. The Russians accepted. If you believe that they're going to sit down with the Russians and not talk about Ukraine, I've got a Greek church right here, which I can't sell because it belongs to the church. So I've got a Greek, here you go. I've got a Greek cup of coffee to sell you. Coffee is a hug for your soul. That's what it says on the cup. I've got a Greek cup of coffee to sell you. It's actually very, very doable, to be quite honest. So anyway, yeah, of course they talked about Ukraine. Of course, I mean, come on now. There is one other topic that they may have discussed, and that has to do with the prisoner swap. I wouldn't be surprised if the Biden White House, feeling very confident, very full of itself, the American people, they have delivered Joe Bidenopolis the mandate to govern again, right? The American people have spoken. What did Joe Biden say in his speech at the G20? He said, America, this is how democracy works. This is democracy in action. The American people, they have spoken again. This is democracy in action. This is democracy in action. He's serious. He's very serious. When he whispers, you know that he's serious. So they've given him the mandate to govern for another 2 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Biden White House is saying, okay, we got the midterms sealed up. We did well. We did really, really well. Republicans, they're lost. They got a doofus leader in McConnell, a real, I'm not even going to get into McConnell, actually, just forget about it. They got a bunch of tools in McConnell and McCarthy, and we shellacked them in these elections. So let's set our sights for 2024, right? And let's score a couple of PR wins. And how about Brittany Griner, the basketball player that's being held in Russia? Actually, she's now serving her prison term. I believe something like 9 years. Maybe they can score a PR win there. The talk way back a couple of months ago was that they give over this Russian arms dealer, Nicolas Cage. What was that movie? Lord of War, or Dogs of War, or whatever. They give this arms dealer back to Russia, and then Russia gives back Griner and this other alleged spy. Forgot his name. Dave Whelan, I think, was his name. This guy was supposedly alleged to be a spy in Russia. The U.S. says he wasn't a spy. He was just a tourist, but I don't know. Who knows? I tend to think that he might have been up to some funny business. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, the deal was being brokered a couple of months ago. Then it went quiet. I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that comes out of this meeting, or if that was something that was discussed. I'm sure that was discussed, but the main topic was Ukraine. And you had Biden. You had Bidenopolis, as he was talking about the America's democracy in action. which handed the Democrats the Senate and potentially the House, though I don't think it's going to happen. I think NBC has already called the House to narrowly go Republican. But anyway, a very good showing in the midterms, as Biden was bragging about that and bragging about the U.S. democracy. He touched upon Ukraine, and this is what he said. Now, keep in mind, the push for the conflict freeze is mostly coming from the United States. I've done three videos, I think, where I've talked about the freeze along with the Duran, about some sort of conflict freeze. I've talked about the New York Times article. I've talked about a Washington Post article. I've talked about General Mark Milley. I did a video yesterday where they were talking about the freeze and how the winter weather, the snow is going to really make life difficult for the Russian military because, I'm sure that the Russian military and the Russian people have probably never even seen snow. I mean, they're going to probably be, I'm sure the Russian military is going to be like, what's this white stuff falling from the sky? How do we drive in this stuff? How do we fight a war in this stuff? What do we do? So, the New York Times was saying, yeah, the snow is going to be a big, big problem for the Russian military. Really big problem. Anyway, and they said that, hey, because of winter, we're going to need a 6-month pause. That was the New York Times yesterday. Here's what Biden said. At the G20, he said the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine is expected to slow down. That's a quote. In the wintertime, President Biden believes. He made his remarks during a press conference after his meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Indonesia on Monday, asked how the capture of the city of Kherson by Kiev's forces after the Russian withdrawal might affect the conflict and whether it would signal a turning point in the hostilities. Biden hailed the development as a significant victory for Ukraine. The president also promised not to engage in any negotiations on Ukraine without Kiev participating in them. If you believe that the U.S. is not going to negotiate with Russia unless Kiev is present, well, if you believe that claim from Biden, I've got a cup of coffee with a hug for your soul to sell you. Of course the U.S. is going to negotiate with Russia if they want to negotiate with Russia. They don't need Zelensky. They don't need Kiev. They don't need the European Union. These are big players. These are supporting actors. The U.S. doesn't need them, and they're showing that they don't need them. What else did he say here? Quote, I've been very clear that we're going to continue to provide the capability for the Ukrainian people to defend themselves, and we are not going to engage in any negotiation. There's nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, Biden said, adding that any negotiations with Moscow was a decision for Ukraine to make. At the same time, Biden said the U.S. expected the conflict to slow down a bit in the upcoming winter season due to the inability to move as easily around the country. The remark echoed recent media reports citing unnamed Biden administration officials who suggested the hostilities are coming to a weather-enforced pause. But I think it remains to be seen exactly what the outcome will be, except that I'm confident that Russia will not occupy or defend Ukraine as they intended from the beginning. That's a direct quote from Biden. I don't know what he means by defend Ukraine, but from the beginning, I don't know. I guess he's admitting, Biden, by saying the Russians are not going to be able to successfully defend Ukraine, I guess he means that Ukraine was Russia's to defend? Who knows? Who knows what goes through the brilliant mind of Joe Bidenopoulos? A beautiful mind. Remember that movie with Russell Crowe? A Beautiful Mind. That's Joe Biden. So, the U.S., the Biden White House, well, a certain faction of the Biden White House, it must be said, is absolutely pushing for a freeze. They're pushing it in the media. They got Biden talking about a freeze. They've got negotiations taking place. They want a freeze. The question remains, does Russia give them a freeze? We don't know. That's the question. Does Russia give them the freeze? And there's a lot of reasons and analysis and theories as to why the U.S. would want a freeze. There's the reason that they want to rearm Ukraine, regroup Ukraine, train more soldiers to get into Ukraine. There was a news story yesterday that the Czech Republic is now going to be training 15,000 Ukraine soldiers every month. I believe so. and it's going to start in a couple of weeks. This program to train soldiers is according to Borrell, is what he told reporters. The Czech Republic, the mission will see the bloc. The Czech Republic, the mission will see the bloc provide training to some 50,000 Ukrainian soldiers as the military conflict between Moscow and Kiev continues. This is the Council of the European Union has launched an EU military assistance mission. EU-MAM, according to a statement by the Czech Republic, which currently holds the presidency of the body. Okay, so it's not specifically the Czech Republic that's going to train these soldiers, though I'm sure they'll do it. But the Czech Republic owns the presidency, has the presidency of the EU, so they have to come out and make these silly little statements. And they announced this new EU-MAM, to train 15,000 Ukrainian soldiers. Okay, and I'm sure that's going to be every month, and I'm sure it's more than 15,000. I would put money on it. And I'm sure these are not Ukrainian soldiers, because these are probably NATO soldiers and NATO mercenaries that are going to put on or a large portion of these people are going to be EU, NATO mercenaries, EU, NATO soldiers and mercenaries who are going to put on the Ukrainian uniform and head to the front lines. No doubt about it. This is without a doubt, in my opinion. I have to say that, without a doubt, in my opinion. So Zelensky, he was speaking to the G20, because everyone knows that Ukraine is a G20 country, because very little corruption, booming economy. Before the war, not during the war, before the war, it was a booming economy and very little corruption and an absolute respect for human rights. Everyone knows that. That's why they are G20. That's why they are a G20 country. Syria, all jokes aside, on a serious note, Zelensky said in his video message at the G20 that there would be no Minsk III between Russia and Ukraine. And he demanded that Russia confirm the territorial integrity of Ukraine, withdraw troops, and pay reparations. For Zelensky's remarks, Peskov said that Zelensky's statement, with regards to Zelensky's statement, Peskov said that this confirms Kiev's position of unwillingness to negotiate. But once again, who cares what Zelensky says and what Zelensky thinks? Honestly, who cares? Yeah, that's all I have to say. He's a bit player now at this point in time. It's all about the Biden White House, all about the U.S. They're in the driver's seat. They've gotten the mandate from the American people. They came out on top, even though they're not going to control the House. In essence, they came out on top in the midterms, and they're going to look forward to 2024. And I said, going back to some of the reasons why they want the freeze, one of the reasons was to allow Ukraine to regroup, but another reason may be that the Biden White House may be looking to score some foreign policy diplomatic wins. After the debacle in Afghanistan, maybe for the Biden White House, the scriptwriter said, you know what, why don't we create a narrative, formulate a story where, Biden stands tough to the Russians. He supported Ukraine. The Russians heroically fought, the Ukrainians heroically fought back the Russians. The siege of Kiev, the ghost of Kiev, the Zaporozhye Avenger, the goat of Kiev. Biden was such a great military leader that they even got goats to fight the Russians. And you had the great victory in Kharkov, where Ukraine took a large amount of territory without any Russians in that area. And then you have the great victory in Kherson, where Ukraine took a lot of territory without any Russians in that area, but it doesn't matter. And they spin it as Biden supporting Ukraine towards a freeze. And then Biden comes in and he negotiates that freeze. He's the great wartime leader and the great peacemaker. Biden, the great wartime leader and the great peacemaker. Oh yeah, that sounds good. That sounds real good. And if he can score, a prisoner swap and bring back a couple of alleged spies and a woman's WNBA basketball player, all the better. All the better. Biden's the man. Takes out corn pop, thwarts the Russian invasion, and delivers peace. And he met with Xi Jinping yesterday, and he drew some red lines. He came out and he said that he doesn't believe that China is going to invade Taiwan. Isn't that what he said? I believe that is what he said. All of these things happening around the same time. You don't think that the White House didn't speak with China about Ukraine? Of course they did. Of course. Anyway, I don't think I have the quote from Biden, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Let me give one more scroll here on my mobile browser and see if I got the quote from Biden and his meeting with Xi Jinping. No, I don't have a quote there. All right. So yeah, I'm 99% sure Biden said that the meeting, not that the meeting went well. I don't think the meeting went so well. It was very short, and Xi Jinping kind of gave Biden a tongue lashing, but I doubt that Biden understands what was going on. Anyway, he came out and read the scripted line. He said, hey, there's not going to be an invasion of Taiwan. He feels pretty confident about that. He drew the red lines. Biden, when Biden draws a red line, you never cross that red line with Biden. It's not like Obama, who would draw the red lines and people would cross it. With Biden, you never cross Biden's red line. So all of these things taking place at once. Now, the Russians, they've got 300,000, perhaps more. They got 300,000 mobilization taking place. We all know that the Russians are the masters of operating conflict in the winter. They're the masters of winter warfare. They know what they're doing in the wintertime. As the ground hardens, as everyone talks about the ground hardening, as the ground hardens, and as the Russians complete their mobilization, they now have General Surovikin, one man, leading the show. So they've got that ironed out. Well, it's up to the Russians then to decide where they want to take this. Do they want to agree with the Biden White House and put a pause in this and try to sell it to the Russian public that the U.S. decided to negotiate with us and put a freeze to the hostilities because of weather? Maybe the Russians can spin it because of Christmas, because of the holidays. Who knows? Who knows what the Kremlin could do with regards to spinning this freeze? Or will the Kremlin say, look, you guys didn't honor Minsk 1, you didn't honor Minsk 2, you never honored everything going on in Syria or Libya or Iraq or anything, just name it. Whatever negotiations, whatever agreements, everything we've ever done in the last 20 years, NATO, NATO expansion, you've always gone back on. So why should we trust you now? That could also be the Kremlin's response. And why should we trust you now that we've gotten all our ducks in a row, or about to get all of our ducks in a row, and we're about to begin this conflict. We're about to start just now, as Putin said. We haven't even started yet. Or what did Putin say? We haven't even started yet, or you haven't seen anything yet. Anyway, it's up to the Russians now. I think the ball's in Russia's court, I would imagine. I am very, very confident that Burns traveled to Ankara to put a deal on the table. That's what I think happened. I'm pretty confident that's what happened. And the Russians going to have to decide. And let Zelensky travel to Kherson. He did his photo op in Kherson. He took his pictures. Though in some of the videos, you can tell that Zelensky, he had a little bit of a of a nose issue. Probably had a cold. He probably had a cold or a runny nose. It happens to be when my nose runs. It itches a little bit, so maybe that was it. In some of the videos, you could see Zelensky in Kherson, kind of, yeah. Anyway, he did his photo op in Kherson. He gave a speech, and he said, "Now's the time for peace." What did Zelensky said? This I've got bookmarked. I'm very confident I have this bookmarked because Zelensky said some interesting things here. Here we go. Let me pull it up. Kherson's liberation is the beginning of the end of war with Russia. That's what Zelensky said. We are step by step coming to all of our country, the temporarily occupied territories. This is what he told the crowd of people in Kherson. He said, Ukraine is ready for peace. That is what he said. Ukraine is ready for peace. And he said, we are ready for peace, but our peace for our country. It's all our country, all our territory. We respect the law and respect sovereignty of all countries. But now we're talking about our country and fighting against Russian aggression. So that was Zelensky's big victory moment. PR optics, the big victory. He travels to Kherson, he makes the victory speech. And, he's going to go down in the history books as the great leader of Ukraine, right? So at the G20, we had some issues at the G20. They couldn't quite get a group photo going because, the G7 countries were whining about Russia being at that photo, and they didn't want to be in the same photo with Lavrov. So they were whining, and they had to put the whole group photo thing on pause. They had to pause the group photo because you have a bunch of whiny G7 participants who don't want to be in the same group photo with the Russians. They can stand over there and let Lavrov stand on the one end and you guys can stand on the other. What's the big deal? They also Reuters threw out that fake news about Lavrov being sick and taken to the hospital, heart problems. Kind of like the 20 heart attacks that Putin has undergone and Shoigu has undergone something like 30 heart attacks. Putin's got all kinds of health issues, and now it's Lavrov's turn. The reason they did that is because they wanted to poison Lavrov's trip to Indonesia. Just kind of spoil it for him by putting out some fake news, and perhaps maybe they could, they could ruin some of the hype that Lavrov brings to the event, because everyone wants to meet with Lavrov. I mean, he's the rock star. And the last thing the collective West wants at the G20 are more photos of Lavrov meeting world leaders and world leaders lining up to take pictures with him and all of this stuff. They don't want those optics. While Clinton, or it could be Clinton, while Blinken is sitting in the corner kind of all alone. No one wants to talk to him. And Lavrov has a line of people wanting to talk to him. They don't want that. So they came up with this stupid little Lavrov is taken to the hospital and heart problems, and we don't know if he'll be back. And they pushed that via Reuters because, Reuters, they never push out fake news, right? Never. I don't even think they retracted the story. They didn't retract it. So that was the drama at the G20. Let's do a clown world. And this one, we have to go back to Kherson for this clown world. And once again, we've got Russian soldiers abusing animals, according to the Washington Post. The title of their article reads, Russian zookeeper kidnaps animals from Kherson, Ukraine says. Ukraine says it must be true. Russia's military has gained a reputation. Now listen to this opening paragraph. Listen to this. You want to talk about propaganda. You want to talk about collective West dehumanizing the Russian people. This opening paragraph is all about dehumanizing the Russian people, painting them out to be animal haters, which is the furthest thing from the truth. If you ever go to Russia, Russians love animals. They love animals. It's true. It's absolutely true. Russia's military has gained a reputation for looting its way across Ukraine, taking washing machines, because they need the chips, right? Because their economy's in tatters, I tell you, tatters. So yeah, they're going to take washing machines. They need the chips for their airplanes, for their jets, for their fighter jets. Russia's military has gained a reputation for looting its way across Ukraine, taking washing machines, electronics, cultural artifacts, and even the bones of the lover of Empress Catherine II. But the latest theft, including 7 raccoons, 2 female wolves, peacocks, and donkey from Kherson Zoo entered the realm of farce. A private Crimean zoo, Taigan Lion Park, owned by Oleg Zubkov, filmed him inexpertly grabbing raccoons by their tails and dumping them into cages in a YouTube video headlined, "We are in Kherson. Oleg Zubkov catches raccoons with bare hands." And they capitalized bare hands in this Washington Post article with 3 exclamation marks. Maybe that was the title of the YouTube video. Okay, that was the title of the YouTube video. Sorry. It's not the Washington Post. That's the title of the YouTube video, with bare hands. The video, which was made unavailable Sunday, showed him with 2 assistants manhandling the llama into a dilapidated windowless van as a dog yapped nearby. Another video uploaded Sunday showed 2 wolves that he said were from Kherson Zoo being unloaded at the Crimean Zoo as 2 Russian television channels filmed the event. He called it a temporary evacuation. Quote, "It will be much better for the wolves here, large territory, Crimean sun, and besides, after the quarantine, they will get a male," Zubkov said. "It's been their dream to live here," he claimed in comments to Russian media on YouTube. All right, there you go. Zubkov, the animal stealer, Oleg Zubkov, according to the Washington Post. Yep, those Russians, they steal washing machines, they steal artifacts, animals. Yeah, it's very sinister stuff. It's a clown world, but this is very sinister propaganda. And it's in the Washington Post because it's directed at a U.S. audience, an English-speaking audience, because they want you to know that everything that they've done to Russia or that they're about to do to Russia is because, Russians are just bad people. That's what they want you to believe. Look at what they do to animals, you see? So everything that we've done and are about to do with regards to Russia and the wars we fight and the wars we fund, well, it's all being done because, these guys do these things to raccoons and wolves and lions and stuff like that. It's sinister propaganda. Anyway, that's the video, guys. theduran.locals.com. Go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. And we are on Rockfin as well. Check out Alexandra's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. We are on all the platforms, including Telegram and Duran shop. Once again, 10% off. Good day. Take care.